For TRICHOMES.com, I'm Jesse Betend, and this is The High Ground. On this show, we talk to the leaders of the cannabis industry, CEOs, farmers, public officials, anyone making an impact on the cannabis industry and beyond. Growers are already experiencing the expected yearly dry spell for cannabis production. But with COVID-19 forcing everyone to stay at home, they're also seeing an additional increase in demand. The result? Huge price increases, in some cases as much as 60%. Today, I'm joined by Jonathan Lyons, owner and CEO of Seabright Farms. We'll get into what all of this means for consumers and what distributors like Jonathan are doing to make sure that the products are getting to the people who need them. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure to be here.
One of the interesting things about this whole experience is that all the way through this, products are still hitting store shelves. Cannabis was deemed an essential service. Just on a high level, what was the impact of COVID-19 on you guys?
Well, basically, initially when this whole pandemic came out, the first challenge was making sure that the employees felt safe and were in the position to be able to come in. Obviously, with schools being shut down and a lot of people not being in work, childcare was an issue. Then our second priority was to really make sure that the facility was set up that we can, abide by the social distancing orders, and that we could keep up with any prevention of cross-contamination and securing the quality of the product while making sure that we address the issues of the safety of the employees.
What was the general feeling among your employees? It sounds like you were receptive to that, and that's something that I'm hearing from a lot of business owners. What was like the general feedback you were getting? Were people kind of nervous?
Well, to tell you the truth, we were in a very unique situation. We started this facility and got our license about 2.5 years ago. It took us almost a year and a half to get through all of the licensing and build out and permit issues with the city to operate. So, right when this pandemic started, we were about 4 months into operation, had a bunch of brands. So we were really in growth mode. And it was all hands on deck, looking to hire some more employees. So everybody had kind of mixed emotions coming into this because we were all focused on this growth and really putting in the extra hours. And all of a sudden the pandemic hit, which kind of changed a lot of things. We had a lot of patient appreciation days set up, a couple of events that we were going to be doing. So we had to kind of regroup, figure out how we were going to handle those issues, as well as how we were going to handle the various meetings that we had going on that were scheduled for the next month. So it was a kind of mixed emotions. But fortunately enough, we have a fantastic staff over at Seabright. Everyone kind of grouped together. I had a couple of meetings and kind of figured out, okay, in this new environment, how do we continue to operate? How do we continue to service the industry?
There's been, in general, increased demand for cannabis products. Is that something that you felt at Seabright?
Yes, absolutely. The demand definitely went up. Obviously people staying at home, nothing much to do. We did see a lot of people that maybe were on the fence before about, trying THC products or CBD product, taking this opportunity to kind of play around with it. So we did see a huge increase in the demand of the various products. But, at the same time, because of the demand and because of just the seasonal dry time that we always go through in the cannabis industry in terms of harvesting flower during the summertime, with the increased demand, then we had to deal with increasing prices. The pound price per pound for flower has been going up. I think the last I checked, it's gone up almost 60% from what we were able to purchase it for about a month ago. That's continuing to rise. So obviously, with the taxation and everything, we have to kind of figure out what we can do to try to maintain prices to kind of offset the increase on the raw materials. So it was definitely a juggling act, to say the least. But I think we were able to successfully use our abilities to be so nimble in the way we operate our business to kind of address it.
Do you expect that prices will continue to rise?
I believe so. I think we're going to see prices rising. That's how I'd say, in my estimation, I'd say mid-August, and then you'll start seeing the prices coming down again. But who's to know? I mean, it really depends. On one hand, you've got the increased demand, but on the other hand, you've got what the last I checked, unemployment's at 27% nationally. So you've got that other issue. More people want the products, but how many of them have got the income or disposable income that they would allocate to buying cannabis as opposed to buying groceries? So it's kind of an unknown territory right now. I know that the issue that a lot of these dispensaries are having is, again, going back to that social distancing ordinance, not having the amount of traffic coming into the store. And then, you also got to keep in mind that a lot of these cannabis consumers, especially the ones that, are fairly new to trying the product, don't necessarily want to be standing in line 6 feet apart outside of a dispensary for everybody to see. That's kind of the beauty of being able to go in the dispensary, go in there, kind of low key, nobody's there. So I know that's definitely impacted their business. Definitely seen a rise in deliveries. But then again, you run into the issue that in all the delivery systems, they were already kind of at max capacity and they were struggling to deliver things in a timely manner. So now with the increased surge of the additional customers trying to do the delivery, it's kind of something that, right in the time of growth in cannabis and all these different changes that we were doing in the various ways that we were exploring to do business, getting hit with the pandemic, kind of created some good and some bad at the same time. But in general, the relationship with the dispensaries has been fantastic. What Seabright prides themselves on is we are constantly trying to be more than just a supplier to our customers. We're more of the added value proposition. So anything we can help in terms with, training, or in this case right now, being able to donate PPE, to the various dispensaries. We're in the process right now of working with a hemp company where we've got personal protective equipment, masks that are being fabricated with hemp that we're donating to the dispensaries, donating hand sanitizer, giving them some CBD lotions since everybody's hands are getting all dried out using hand sanitizer a million times a day. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, kind of support them because we know we are all going to get through this. And I think that's where we're going to be able to show our value to our customers is that we try to support them more than just offering products at a time of need.
Yeah, I am hearing on the retail side, more people are exploring the option of expanded options with curbside pickup, delivery, and laws and policies locally being changed because of COVID that are allowing people to still buy stuff without having to actually go into the store, which is making them kind of think about, after this, is there going to be kind of a new way of doing business? Will there be more interest in delivery systems? I think that's a yes. Will there be potentially less stigma, with, you raise a great point with people not wanting to necessarily be standing outside of a store, and, clearly identified in terms of what they're doing. But if some of these dispensaries kind of morph into, rethinking whether or not they need that physical space and maybe becoming more of a delivery style company, how does that impact you as a traditional distributor, or does it not?
Well, no, it definitely does impact us. I mean, as of right now, kind of back up into, the way we've kind of view what's gone on in the industry. I think, if we go back to where this whole green rush was supposed to happen and why nobody's seen that happening, going back to there's so many of the illegal dispensaries out there. So basically, 80% of the business that comes from the consumers comes from 20% of the market. That 20% was still going to, the traditional dispensaries. So, we were faced an illegal market that we were now selling to the 80% that only represent 20% of the sales. And that 80% of that customer base weren't educated. So what we relied on the dispensaries were training the bud tenders so that soccer mom or that executive, that business professional could come in there, no idea what brands are, what infused pre-rolls were, or sauce or dabs, all the various products that we've come out with. And they relied on that bud tender to kind of take them through the products and kind of explain to them how to use them. So now, without having that, and now we're going to delivery and curbside, that is going to be a struggle. And the reason I see it being a struggle is because we're limited in the cannabis industry as to what we can advertise and what we could put out there. So trying to get that educational piece directly to the customer without having a physical location for them to go into is definitely going to be an issue. That is something that we have been working on, that we were working on before the pandemic. But I still see that being a struggle, and that will definitely impact people.
That is such a good point. And I think one of the perhaps overlooked, not necessarily overlooked, but I'm in Illinois, in Chicago specifically. And so we're just into our first year, a few months into our first year of legal cannabis. And as people are starting to get used to that, I think it can't be overstated how much the experience of like walking in and being able to talk to someone and kind of sheepishly being like, okay, so I don't really know what I'm doing here, but like, well, let's figure it out. That's really crucial for somebody who's on the fence or nervous, or, obviously there's a large percentage of people who have probably been buying cannabis, like you said, on the black market, and have just been waiting for the opportunity to do that legally. What are some of the things you're thinking about? Is it an app, a combination of everything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked. So one of the things that we were already doing, we're big fans, and got a great relationship with Bel Costa Testing Lab in Long Beach. They're one of the only laboratories nationally that got their A2LA certification. Fantastic guys there. And we really trust their information. So, what we've done is we also have a relationship with a lot of physicians that are definitely pro-cannabis. So what we've already started doing to help educate the public, and initially it was going to be an offering that was going to be offered through the dispensaries directly to the customers. And now we're starting to figure out how to put that on a social media platform, or whether it be our website. But basically what we're going to be doing is taking various products. They could be our products, they could be competitors' products, whatever it may be, giving that to Bel Costa to test and feed data back to our physicians group that then would entail give these educational 2 or 3 minute videos just explaining products, not endorsing any of the products, but basically saying, based on the information from this number one lab, and based on their medical knowledge and experience, these are the potential risks or benefits to using the various products, and this is how they would hypothetically recommend using the various products. And the other part of what we're looking to do as well is kind of open up an online chat board where consumers can actually ask these physicians or the members of the lab various questions and interact with them to kind of give them that information that they need. So again, it's something initially that we were planning on doing through our online marketplace. It's something that we offer to the bud tenders and the dispensaries, anybody that purchases from us. But now with the changing environment, we're looking to put this stuff available online. And obviously we got to figure out, how to do that with all the red tape and all the regulations that the state puts in place. But I'm confident that we will be able to accomplish that. And again, it's all about that education. People want to know what they're getting into, and they need some, valid data supporting it. And that's kind of what we're trying to provide.
That sounds fantastic. If people are interested in checking that out, can they follow your website or your social media for updates?
Absolutely. If you go to seabrightfarms.com, you will start seeing updates as to, we will have those videos being posted online. Our plan is to get the first one up there by the 1st of July.
You mentioned the increased demand. I'm curious, were there any specific products, any kinds of things or strains, anything that is in increased demand above other things? Any trends you're kind of seeing within the products themselves?
Yeah, I've actually seen, the wellness lines and the tinctures have done very well. Those and the edibles. Obviously, with the pandemic of a respiratory virus being out there, people are a little hesitant on smoking, especially when it comes to the vapes after what we all just went through with that popcorn lung scare.
Hmm.
So I've seen, the sales of vape cartridges have definitely gone down. Pre-rolls have done pretty well. Edibles have gone up, from what we've seen, about 35%. And the wellness lines, so any of the tinctures that we carry that have got a CBD, some kind of ratio of CBD to THC have, definitely have increased.
I think this is a question that might be almost super basic for you, but for someone listening to this who is new to cannabis, interested in trying this stuff out, but maybe a little bit hesitant about buying a product that they're going to smoke, like you said, given a respiratory illness is out there. What does safety look like in terms of handling, packaging, and delivering the product to the consumer? Um, what did you guys have to do in order to kind of like meet the moment? And can people smoke knowing that the product is going to be safe?
Yeah, great question. One of the things at Seabright we pride ourselves on is we don't cut any corners. So prior to this pandemic coming out, we go above and beyond to make sure that there's no chance of cross contamination or mishandling of the product, to eliminate or reduce the risk of any molds, mildews, anything being introduced to a product. So our best practices on a normal day is, the full masks on, gloves, limiting the area, limiting the amount of traffic that goes into the production area. We've got a special ventilation system in our production area that eliminates contaminants. So that's something we were always doing. Basically, going into this pandemic, it's just kind of reinforced. So we just have to continue doing that. So nothing much has changed, but I can definitely assure you, at least, out of our facility, anything that comes out of it that's fabricated there is definitely safe to smoke. There's no way of cross-contamination.
You mentioned that you started Seabright Farms fairly recently. You're kind of in the grow period here. Going back prior to this, what were you doing before Seabright, and what was your kind of introduction or entry into cannabis?
Yeah, so I've always been an advocate of cannabis ever since I was in high school. But my background really came from, I worked in the dental and medical industry for a long time. So I built and ran dental laboratories, really big part of some of the dental schools, and dealing with healthcare in general. Just looking at what was going on with the dental industry in general, turning into a commodities business. And I saw the opportunity in cannabis and a lot of similarities. The way the production facilities work in dental are very, very similar to what needs to be done in cannabis. Very accustomed to compliance, regulatory, manufacturing, creating the products, packaging. It's just all exactly the same. So it's actually, myself and one of my partners, who's another dental professional out of San Antonio, Texas. We took the chance and started Seabright Farms.
That's really interesting. Are there other ex-dental professionals out there?
I've actually run into quite a few, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah. To tell you the truth, a lot of them see the similarities. We ran into, when we were our first month operating, got a call from one of the owners of Port 7 Cannabis. Had a great call with him and decided we want to start doing business. Come to find out, when we exchanged emails, that he was my high school buddy who was also a sales rep that worked with me in the dental field. We had no idea we were even talking to each other. So he did the exact same thing. He was an implant specialist. And kind of saw the same similarities that I saw and gave up dental and jumped into it. And there's more and more people
wild.
that are popping up at every single cannabis event and show that I go to, which is actually nice because it kind of reinsures that other people are seeing the same thing that we did. We weren't out of our mind for what we did.
Yeah, right. No, that's really interesting. I wonder, like, you don't have to speak for them, but at least in your case, is it a matter of opportunity, or is it a matter of, working in something that just speaks to you more? Why cannabis over, this sort of established field where you're already working?
Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, what we saw is, I'll be very honest with you. If it was federally legal from day one, I guarantee I would have not jumped into this. Basically, what we saw was an opportunity to introduce some basic business principles, operating principles, and strategies that we've taken from our other industries and be able to implement them in cannabis to give us an advantage over some of the competitors. With it being federally illegal, basically all the big boys are at bay right now. And those are the guys that we would normally be competing with in any other industry that know exactly what needs to be done. So that's kind of what the opportunity was in our eyes and what we wanted to bring to the table. And so far, I'm happy to say it's worked out pretty well for us. Kind of, instilling those same functions, those same processes that we did learn then, and putting it into this new business.
That's fascinating. When it comes to getting licensed to do what you're doing, do you think that your background played any role in that? Like, did that make people feel more comfortable about trusting you either as a client or in terms of, granting licenses?
I don't think it helped me out at all in granting the license.
Okay.
I think I went through the same nightmare as everybody else. I think it might have been actually even harder for me because, I had the brilliant plan to come down to Long Beach, which is a fantastic place to have a business, but definitely one of the hardest cities to get through. And we did make it through that. I think it did kind of help out in terms of, dealing with some of the attorneys and some of the business professionals, definitely the testing laboratories, because a lot of the, compliance and ISO regulations and, some of those things are something that we're very accustomed to. So you didn't really need to explain to us. For the average, cannabis entrepreneur that came from the traditional market, not that they weren't capable of doing that, but they just had no experience doing it. So they were basically learning something that we've already kind of gone through.
What is next for Seabright? What are some things that you're excited about in terms of the business?
What I'm really excited about is, Seabright, one, we're really differentiating ourselves with our process, our customer service, the technology that kind of goes behind how we service the customers. Obviously, we've got a beautiful 25,000 square foot building. We're licensed for Type 7 volatile manufacturing. We've got 22,000 square foot canopy for our cultivation side, and we've got our distribution. So obviously looking at that vertically integrated model is definitely something that we're excited about. But in addition to that, looking at other states that we can take the same method, the same model that we've put together and kind of taking that and bringing it to the other states, as well as our new venture into, getting into the hemp-derived CBD market. So, we're very excited to be able to kind of cross-brand some of the cannabis products with the hemp-based CBD products so that we can have a little more of a reach, as well as, number one on our priority is the education piece. We really want to kind of be at the forefront of being looked to as the educators in the industry.
You guys also have some new products coming out. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so one of our new products that is actually going to be released this Tuesday is our new Hammerhead pre-rolls. So Hammerhead pre-rolls are made exclusively by us and distributed by us. They're a diamond infused, and they're actually infused with Fuego Diamonds, which is another brand that we distribute for. But they're diamond infused pre-rolls that have got cannabis-derived terpenes inside of them, then coated with high potency cannabis oil, and then seasoned with very high potency kief. It's all wrapped up in a nice all natural hemp paper. And really, really fantastic product that we're excited about. We've got 5 different flavors that'll be coming out. And one of the things that we're really, really proud of is that in every market that we're going to be introducing this product, we have built in a charitable donation based on the sales of this product. For example, we're looking at one of the target markets that we're going to be releasing this is down in San Diego. So $1 of every one of these pre-rolls would be donated back to the Surf Rider Foundation. We're currently working with the LBCA and seeing if we can do something with them. We'd like to donate a portion of the proceeds of those sales back to the organization that we're a part of, obviously right in our backyard. But that's kind of what we're leading with any of our products that come out to market, is that we want every purchase, a portion of every purchase needs to go back to organizations that can use it.
This is kind of a thinky question, but you talked about the need to educate, or the importance of that experience in person with a bud tender, and how a new consumer can really get something from that. And I think there is something to the idea that when you're selling a product that to some degree may be considered taboo, ultimately it's like human interaction, that the person on the other side of the counter kind of making you feel less judged or weird or whatever for, even being in there in the first place. And I'm curious, like, what, when it comes to kind of giving back and charity, and the idea that, like, every time you buy a little bit of weed, a buck is going to help a charitable cause. How does the legal cannabis market kind of claw away some of the business from, the 80% that's still kind of buying weed the old way? Is part of that just sort of like demystifying it to some degree? And is that a little bit harder now when you can't do that in person?
It is. It definitely is. And, at some level, you can't really blame them, with the tax structures that are in place and all the taxation that's on cannabis. Unfortunately, some of these products just get overinflated and they're out of reach for the average person. And that's something, it's a much bigger issue that definitely needs to be handled. But until that time, this is kind of what we're dealing with. So that's why, we go back, and what we really, really try to spend time doing is, sourcing the right material, figuring out how we can get these things to market as cheap as possible, but yet not sacrificing any of the quality of the products that we're making. So it is something that we are going to have to address, and it's definitely going to be a challenge. It's going to be evolving, as the industry is constantly evolving.
It sounds like you're aware of the crunch that your customers might be feeling in this current moment, and you're doing what you can to kind of keep the products within reach.
Absolutely. I mean, the way we look at products in reality, especially from a retail perspective, is a product to us is not sold until it's in the hands of the consumer. So we don't consider a win because we sold, a couple of thousand pre-rolls to a dispensary. I want to see those pre-rolls actually come off the shelf of the dispensary and go into the consumer's hand. That's when we know we've got a product that's successful. So we always keep that in mind. The dispensary in our minds is basically just the liaison or the vehicle that's going to get that product into the consumer's hand. So we ultimately have to keep in mind, whatever the tax is, whatever the markup is, whatever the competing products are, how are we going to differentiate ourselves? How are we going to show that we've got value, quality? How can we provide that added value that the consumer is looking for them to purchase that product? So that's always what our focus is, as opposed to, well, let's just figure out how to sell a bunch of products to a dispensary. So keeping that in mind, I think, is really what helped us develop some of the products that we've been doing, is because that's ultimately what our goal is.
Jonathan Lyons is the owner and CEO of Seabright Farms. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You can find more cannabis industry reporting at TRICHOMES.com, as well as more great shows like this one. If you're a member of the cannabis community and you have a story you want to share with us, reach out. You can reach the show at highground@TRICHOMES.com. Please take a second to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. It really helps others find the show. You can also join the discussion with industry insiders and get your voice heard by joining the community at TRICHOMES.com and following us on all social media. The High Ground is produced by David Fortin. I'm Jesse Betend, and thank you for listening.